Hello, I'm Robert Kelly, and welcome to a Record All Monsters bonus special. We are here, of course, as always, with Courtney.
Hi.
And with a special guest, Nathanael Ross Smith.
Hello.
And we're doing something a little different. We're about to see the movie Frankenstein Conquers the World, but before that, I wanted to bring up, Nathanael, you and I, we've been friends for a while now, and one of the things we have in common is a love of classic horror, classic films in general, classic horror in particular, and narrowing it down even further, a love for Frankenstein.
Yes, very much so.
And just, I think over, I don't know, like, however long we've known each other, Frankenstein probably comes up more...
A lot?
Yeah. More than it does among normal people.
Yeah. You're someone that I can say things like James Whale or something, and you actually know what I'm talking about. So
I wanted, before we saw Frankenstein Conquers the World, to kind of get your take on Frankenstein in general, what it is like for you, just liking Frankenstein.
What it's like for me liking Frankenstein? it's great. It's great for me. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've talked about this too. Probably my favorite monster, like Universal monster movie in general would probably be Dracula, which I think we share that in common.
Yeah.
But Frankenstein, I think that's my favorite monster to draw is Frankenstein for whatever reason. I don't know. I love drawing Frankenstein.
You do it very well.
Well, thank you. Sometimes I feel like I do, and sometimes I feel like I don't. So thank you. I don't even know what the first time I saw Frankenstein, but it was as a young child, and it's been with me ever since. I feel like with the difference, I can't think now off the top of my head, but I feel like old horror movies, I always loved, a graveyard with a lot of fog. Yeah. And I don't think there is that in Dracula. You have his castle and stuff, but I don't think there's a good graveyard scene. No. So Frankenstein to me is one of the first ones I can remember of whenever they at the very beginning there's that scene where they have the funeral march and then they're stealing the bodies and stuff, and I think that was
their heads pop up behind the hill like a Marx Brothers short.
Yep, exactly, 100%. And then every Frankenstein movie after, there's a graveyard.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about that scene is basically the little clip show at the beginning of Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes. And
you have the guy who's playing Lord Byron, and he's like, "How did you come up with that story with the rifling graves?"
Yes.
And it's just I will rewind that sometimes to be
because it's so great. So for you, do you have a preference between? Because a lot of people will say that Bride of Frankenstein is the superior movie, maybe the best in the Frankenstein movies. Where do you land on that? So
for me, I do like Bride of Frankenstein a lot, but my favorite of the Universal Frankenstein movies is Son of Frankenstein. I think it strikes a really great balance between the older Universal horror style, while also being paced a lot more like a modern movie.
Yeah.
It still has that suspense. It still makes you work for and wait for the best stuff. But it's moving.
Yeah.
What about you?
Honestly, I would probably say my favorite is always going to be the first one, because that's the one I saw the most as a kid, maybe. But I know that Boris didn't like the idea of having the monster talk, and I think I kind of am with him. I don't hate it when he talks, but the first one has its own feel with that I think works really well, I just like a lot.
I agree with that. I feel like the monster works better as a character in the first one. You get so much out of Karloff, the scene just always breaks my heart where he's chained to the wall and the sun comes in and he's just reaching for it.
Right.
And the only thing that kind of comes close to that, like that's just so like I feel that. The only thing that really comes close to that is the Hermit's Hut, I feel like.
Yeah.
But that has such a heavy hand
Yeah.
in what it's doing. Even if it's, it's iconic,
It is, yeah, it's great.
really well done, but it's kind of,
Yeah. I agree, yeah, I think Son of Frankenstein is one of my favorites too. I think those three would have been my top three of the Universal Frankenstein movies. I think, and I love Bride of Frankenstein, but I think some of there's like some comedic, even with him talking, there's like some of that's used for comedy.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't have anything against that, but also I kind of like it better when it's a little creepier.
Yeah.
And then also like when you first meet Dr. Pretorius and he shows them all of his creation, it's like, yeah, this is like kind of funny, but I don't know if I really want this in a Frankenstein movie exactly.
Right.
But then he's great too, 'cause he's like, later, he's just hanging out in those tombs with the skulls, drinking wine by himself. So it's like, okay, well, this is okay. I'm still into it.
Dr. Pretorius is one of my favorite characters in any movie. As a matter of fact, one of my first bands in high school, I wanted to name us Dr. Pretorius's Underground Medicine Show.
Yeah, I like that.
And no one else was into it. I was like, come on, it's so long and bad and weird and fun.
Right. And the people that get it will love it.
Yes, and people who don't will have no idea what we do. But I love, and I think the humor with him, like specific to his character, not so much gotta keep the little people away from each other.
Right, the king's after those women again.
But I think a lot of the humor with him that's actually built into the story, like everything is his only weakness.
Yeah, right. That's a very good joke.
With a straight face too, because a lot of people point to this movie as like a really early example of camp.
I need to see it.
You've seen it.
Which one?
Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the other one.
Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Which we watched that last Halloween.
Oh, it's been so long.
Well, it's good too. You can always rewatch those.
Yeah.
There's something fun too about tracking the monsters' outfits through the movies.
Yes.
I don't know what it is that appeals to me about that, but like by Son of Frankenstein, I think that's the first one where he has that weird like kind of sheep.
Yeah, he has the sheep vest. Yeah.
Which I don't understand why they did that, but I love it. I think
It's
that's so
a great
cool.
look.
Yeah.
And then a great look for the monster. Like I wouldn't go out wearing that or anything. And then of course we're talking about Son of Frankenstein, Bela Lugosi as Igor,
which is so good. Yeah,
Yes.
his neck.
Yeah.
Which I think we've talked about that before, but I think that one's fun too because that's him playing a character that's kind of vastly different from stuff you've kind of seen before that point. So it kind of does, I think, just with his language skills, sometimes and even having made the decision or had the decision made for him not to be the monster in the first one, and then from there kind of just took anything he could get. So sometimes there's a disparity of his movies sometimes compared to Karloff's movies. So maybe he's not always seen as good of an actor, but I think in that one, in a lot of them he's great. In that one you kind of see like, oh yeah, you're good, you're creepy, you're menacing. This doesn't feel like Dracula at all.
I feel like that and The Raven, probably, if anyone says that Lugosi's not a good actor, I think you can point to those two movies.
Yeah.
Specifically, there are other ones too, but like those are going to make, in my opinion, those are going to make the case that he would just, no one knew what to do with him after Dracula.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's the language barrier that some people are like, oh, did he know English? Yes, he did. He's very good.
He spoke more English than you probably do Hungarian.
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's something with that too that kind of works, I guess maybe in horror stuff to kind of give it like an unsettling feel. He kind of use that to his advantage, I think, too.
Well, like in Dracula, there's the exchange with Renfield at the beginning of the movie. Like, I think that's also some of his very best acting.
Yeah.
like he's going over the documents, and Renfield's like, "So, do we need to pack anything?"
Mm-hmm.
And he just says, "I'm only taking with me 3 boxes."
Mm-hmm.
And the way he says it, because he's going over the documents, he's like, it comes off as he is actually looking at legal documents,
right,
trying to translate what has been said to him, and then trying to translate his answer all at the same time. And then the way he just changes the subject a couple of times, which we're supposed to be like, oh, he's hiding something. But that also sells, you know, like the humanity, like the normalcy that at odds with the weirdness. That he's like, I don't know where to go with that, so we will be leaving tomorrow evening.
That also could be. I feel like a lot of the people who say that Karloff is better than Lugosi, which like they're good in their own way.
Yeah,
like,
they're their own thing.
You want different things from them.
They are like, oh, someone from Eastern Europe, what? We want to listen to this fancy British guy. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
But I do love Boris Karloff too.
Boris Karloff, and of course his 3 films as the monster. They are the best movies for Frankenstein.
I even like him when he's not the monster. Which one is that? After a certain point, I forget which name is which. Is that? It's not House.
That is House of Frankenstein. And he's Dr. Edelman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, no, not Dr. Edelman, because he's. It's the one where he's like the other doctor that escapes from prison.
Isn't that Dr. Edelman?
No, Dr. Edelman's the one that all the monsters show up at his kind of asylum thing, and he's trying to like cure Dracula from.
I know which one you're talking about though.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head in that one, but that one, you see John Carradine as Dracula for the first time,
and Karloff is having so much fun in that. And isn't that Glenn Strange's first time as the monster?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but that sounds like it's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I always remember the Crestwood House monster books. Did you grow up with those? Yeah. There's a picture from the promotion for Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein of Boris Karloff standing outside the theater, pointing at the marquee and holding his ticket, like, I've got to see this.
Yeah, right. And I saw that and I thought, well, yeah, of course, I have to see this too. One of the other things that stands out to me in the first Frankenstein movie is the monologue at the beginning is one of the coolest things of all time to me. I've always wanted to play a Halloween show and have that be like the kind of walkout thing. Have that little monologue going.
There was one like that at the end of Dracula with Edward Van Sloan when it was initially released.
Okay.
Where he basically said, as you are walking home and you hear the wind howling through trees, and you think there's someone behind you, but you can't see. And just remember, there are such things.
I have seen this. Yes.
So it's kind of been pieced together. It was lost for a really long time. And I don't think they have any original film elements to restore it.
Right.
But the audio survives.
I feel like I've even heard it maybe like sometimes when people do like old radio show stuff. I think I've even heard that clip be played.
Yeah, the audio survives, and I think sometimes people will like put it over, like they add grain to the Frankenstein intro. And then play it. But it's just the Universal movies.
Yeah. And he's great too. He makes like such a big part, and he shows up in Frankenstein. It wouldn't be the same without him.
Hello, I'm Robert Kelly, host and writer of Record All Monsters, and this is an ad for Anchor. That's right, it's an ad for Anchor, and if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. I was really intimidated at first to start this show until I heard about Anchor, and there were a few things that made me feel more at ease to begin. First of all, it's free. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, and Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on a number of platforms, including whichever one you're listening to it on right now. You can even make a little money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And even their ads are easy. The mandatory call to action is something I can state freely. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Doesn't that feel good? This has been an ad for Anchor, and I've been Robert Kelly, host and writer of Record All Monsters. Universal Frankenstein, you both love. How are you on the Hammer Frankensteins?
I have not seen all of them. Hammer movies I didn't grow up with, so that was kind of like a later discovery for me. Mm-hmm. So I've seen quite a few, but I mean, I don't have the same deep love, but I do. I mean, I love Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Like that alone will sell me on anything.
Yeah.
I do like. Peter Cushing is so much more despicable as Dr. Frankenstein
than any of Universal's doctors.
Yeah. Clive is... I think he's great. I love him as Dr. Frankenstein. He's actually more lovable, and you kind of feel he's more tragic.
Yeah.
Whereas Peter Cushing's like, oh yeah, you're just a bad man. You're a bad man. You deserve everything that's coming to you.
Well, Courtney, we watched The Curse of Frankenstein, the first Hammer Frankenstein movie, not too long ago.
Was it one of the ones on Svengoolie?
It was on Svengoolie, yeah.
I liked that one a lot.
It's cool. The makeup for that one is great.
I did that makeup on myself one year for Halloween, and the only picture I have of it that I can find, it's too blurry to really see. And I was really proud of it. Like, and I keep wanting to show people, like, look at this. And no, I can't. It's not. It looks much worse than it actually was.
Was it the same makeup that you had when you asked me out?
No, that
I was dressed up as Frankenstein when he asked me out.
That was a Universal Frankenstein that I made myself. I made a headpiece from a...
You made that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's really cool.
Well, it was from a generic zombie mask.
Yeah.
And I repainted it, and I cut the face out, and kind of like to my hairline, and then I bought I bought a bowl cut wig, and then I sewed it on to be a flat top.
So you're set.
Yeah, it was really good, and we lost it in the move, so I had to buy an actual one.
Yeah, Frankenstein one.
It's somewhere, I'm sure.
I'm sure, but yeah, I made that.
That's awesome.
Courtney, when we were watching Curse of Frankenstein, you brought up a book that you'd read that you said it reminded you of. Do you remember?
Was it Elizabeth Frankenstein?
I believe so, yeah.
Let me look up the exact title. It's one of my favorites. I've read it. Like, I don't always reread books, but that's one that, like, every fall I like to reread. The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. And it's from the perspective of Elizabeth, who he ends up marrying. She gets, like, no coverage in the actual book.
In the movies, she's two different people.
Yes.
The first two. Yeah. Not a lot of coverage there either.
But it's really good, and she was brought to them as a child as like a companion for him because he was real crazy, and
that was in the Curse of Frankenstein, the Hammer one too.
Yeah, and they were pretty much inseparable, and it's a really good look at like emotionally abusive like relationships and like why someone would stay in that. And she's just a fascinating character. I love what they do with her. And there's the part when she goes to try to see him at school. There are people who own a bookstore in Switzerland who are Latino, which is really cool because you never see that anywhere. And
but I'm a Latino.
What? So it's just just a really cool book. I recommend it to everybody. It's one that I'm like, read it, please.
I have to put it on my list,
Yes.
especially when fall comes back around.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we brought that up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to get everyone's Frankenstein experience on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. When I was younger, I watched Bride of Frankenstein more, but I would get kind of bored about like halfway through because I was like, where is she?
Yeah, right. She's there for a very brief moment.
Yeah.
Yes, at the end.
And then the fact
And they're so proud.
Yeah. And he like doesn't give her a chance to like even be alive for like 2 seconds before he's like, oh, she hates me.
We belong dead.
We belong dead.
Yes. And I remember the part with the little people and the glasses, like the mermaid and stuff in the bell jars. I remember that really clearly. And then of course the scene with the old man.
The hermit.
Yes. And I remember that especially because more than anything else, I watched Young Frankenstein
yes.
as a kid.
Of course.
Beautifully parodied there. Gene Hackman is the hermit in that. And back to Bride of Frankenstein, John Carradine is one of the hunters who comes into the hut.
You're right.
And runs off the monster.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's an uncredited role.
They're everywhere. Even though I said earlier I prefer when the monster doesn't talk, I don't even hate it when he does, but without him talking, we wouldn't have the hate the living, love the dead, that line. I might have said it backwards, so if
no, I think you got it. I think you got it
better. Don't scream at me. But
Yeah.
I also probably the thing that I saw the most as a kid was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, because that was just we watched Abbott and Costello movies all the time.
Yeah.
And that one's like, as a child, that's the first movie I can remember seeing where it's like, oh, Frankenstein's in this, Dracula's in it, and the Wolfman's all in this movie. And then very briefly, Vincent Price doing the voice of the Invisible Man for a second. That was like, that was like magic.
That's a good movie. I remember when Universal put out on DVD the Legacy collections for the first time. They did it again recently. Mm-hmm. But the first release did not have Abbott and Costello. Mm-hmm. And I was just like really broken up about it.
Yeah.
Like, I just spent like $25 on this and it's not even complete.
Yeah.
Like
and it's a solid one. I feel like I feel like Young Frankenstein is similar, but I think there's that way of doing for instance, I heard one time Simon Pegg and Nick Frost were talking about, I think they were maybe talking about making Hot Fuzz. Mm-hmm. And they were just kind of saying, like, the trick is to write a good movie and then put jokes into it. So it's like that movie, I love that movie. Mm-hmm. And it's like a really good movie, and it's got like kind of creepy stuff in it, and it's like a good mystery, but also it's funny. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a very classic way to do comedies. Yeah. So like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is a funny movie, but it's also a good monster movie. Right. And I feel then like Young Frankenstein is in that same vein where it's like, okay, this would be a good monster movie, and it's also funny.
It's essentially a remake of Son of Frankenstein. Yeah. With, a few set pieces taken here and there from the other well-known Frankenstein movies. But if you want to, you can actually... Young Frankenstein works in continuity with the Universal films. He could actually be Basil Rathbone's son. Right. Like it doesn't contradict. It actually contradicts less of the Universal movies than the Universal movies do. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's touch real quick before we go on modern Frankenstein stuff. Is there any good modern Frankenstein stuff that you've seen?
Man, that's a question that I don't know off the top of my head. I'm stuck in my preferences for old things from the past as far as movies go. I'm sure, this isn't modern, but I was thinking about the Munsters earlier. That's not a modern thing at all. That's from the 60s. But you got Herman, that's the Frankenstein.
Herman is a great Frank. We were Herman and Lily for Halloween this year, Courtney.
Yeah, I remember.
But I'm trying to think if there have been... I've seen several There was in 2004 Van Helsing. That wasn't very good.
No, I don't think I think that's one they would play like on FX all the time or something. So I've seen like bits. Yeah, not totally my thing. That's fine.
I do like the Frankenstein makeup in it.
Yeah.
While we're on the subject of Frankenstein, but movie's fine. No, it's not. It's not good.
Which is too bad.
But it's. I mean, like, if it's on TV, I'll be like, "Hey, Van Helsing."
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There was I, Frankenstein,
which I haven't seen.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Was that based off of the Dean Koontz
No.
Frankenstein?
That was based off a graphic novel by the guy who made the Underworld movies.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And it's like this heartbroken, sexy Frankenstein played by Aaron Eckhart.
Oh, see, that whole time I thought it was supposed
The Dean
to
Koontz?
be the Dean Koontz one, which is fun. It's not like great literature, but like it's fun.
Yeah,
I read one of them when I was in the monastery. I don't know if I've elaborated on that to the listeners before, but I was in a anyway. I read one of the Dean Koontz Frankenstein movies, or one of the Dean Koontz Frankenstein books when I was in the monastery, and I was like, "This was fine."
Yeah, I haven't read any of them, so I tried.
And then there was recently the Victor Frankenstein, starring Elijah Wood.
Oh, I don't.
Elijah or Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe, yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe.
He was Igor, right?
Yeah, I think so. It was written by noted sex pervert Max Landis. Alleged, but I think he's a sex pervert.
Yeah, sure.
He's certainly a jerk.
So in that case, that's not a selling point for making a Frankenstein movie.
Yeah. So
I watched Penny Dreadful back in the day, and Frankenstein makes an appearance in there.
How was that?
It's fine. There's stuff that's like kind of cool about it. I think it's not what I would want it to be. Some of it starts doing like I don't know. I'm kind of particular with my horror stuff, and so like I like old horror movies. So I like setting. I like spooky castles and graveyards, and sometimes modern horror wants to get kind of like I don't even know what the right word is for it, but it's like
slick.
Yeah, and there's it's almost like the Marilyn Manson kind of factor where it's like, okay, I have to push these buttons a little bit and make it a little more extreme, and like that, I just don't care about that. So that definitely has some of those moments in it, but it was I would watch it when I was drawing, so you know, and you have a lot of people show up, and you got Frankenstein's in it.
Well, and we're about to watch Frankenstein Conquers the World. For us, mere minutes will have passed.
That's right.
For you, the listener, a whole week. Which is usually the opposite of how this works. Like, you get the instant gratification, and I have to edit and toil and book and record. But for you, it's seamless. Not today. Today, you have to wait for a week to hear what we thought of Frankenstein Conquers the World. But thus conclude the Frankenstein adventures for now. Nathaniel, where can people find you online?
And best thing is, as always, just Instagram, which is my full name, Nathanael Ross Smith. And I'm on there drawing pictures of Frankenstein sometimes.
I just ask you every time, and I'm going to ask you again when we record the other one.
That's okay. Sure. I'll try to come up with a more interesting way to say it, but I'm going to say that now, and you'll hear it, and it's going to be exactly the same thing.
Wonderful. Courtney?
See Mike's Run, or See Mike's Art Stuff, which I don't post on a lot, but that's my public one, so
she may weed you out if you go for the See Mice Run.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know you. I'm sorry.
Get out of here.
As for me, you can find us at recordallmonsters.pod on Instagram. You can find us at Monsters Record on Twitter. You can search Record All Monsters Podcast on Facebook. We have a website, recordallmonsters.wordpress.com, and an email address, recordallmonsterspod@gmail.com. We ordered dinner from a local burger place, and I used that email. It was just kind of funny to see it on the receipt. Just between now and next week, remember that monsters are your friends.